Welcome to Pop Culture Fridays. I'm Troy. This week I saw The Last Dance, the documentary about Michael Jordan and the Bulls, the 1990s. And I just wanted to talk about it because I thought it was a great documentary. It's a 10-episode series, like a mini doc series. It should be a major doc series. Each episode's an hour long and it's 10 episodes. It's like Jane Austen territory. But it's really good, and I wanted to address something specifically about the Detroit Pistons because they are involved in this, in part of it. My beloved Detroit Pistons, lifelong Pistons fan here. And, if you don't know the story of Michael Jordan, he played for the Bulls, Chicago Bulls, from the mid-80s to late 80s until late 90s, something like that. And when he was starting out, the Pistons were great. The Detroit Pistons were great. And that was his team that he had to beat, in order to go on his way to winning championships. And I'm going to be fair to the city of Chicago here. I love Chicago as a city. I hate the sports teams. In the spirit of sport, I hate them. I don't detest them. Most of the time. Anyway. But Jordan had to overcome those bad boy Pistons, and they were bad in a good way. And something happened in the documentary that I hadn't really forgotten about it, but the way they talked about it I thought was a bit strange. So, just to give you a backstory here, the Pistons won back-to-back championships in 89, 90, 90-91, and they beat the Bulls both times. This is before the Bulls ended up winning 6 championships and three-peating twice, which is fucking crazy. Probably, I would be willing to admit, one of the best teams of all time. The first three-peat was on their own, they earned it, and the second three-peat was with 20% of the Detroit Piston bad boy roster. So say what you will about that, but whatever. But still, I think probably the greatest player of all time, probably one of the greatest teams of all time, probably. 2 three-peats, who's going to beat that? Nobody's going to beat that. Anyway, so the Pistons were the team to beat, and Pistons played a rough style of basketball. They were good, which they never get credit for being good. They never get credit for being like one of the best teams, because they were, if you don't know, they beat the shit out of you as well. Physically, they were intimidating. They pushed people around. They got Larry Bird to throw punches. They would punch you in the face basically, and they did that to Jordan because Jordan was great. And I don't think Jordan would have beat them if they hadn't done that, because he didn't have enough people around him yet. How many times do we have to learn that you can't have one athlete on a team and win championships? Ask Barry Sanders, ask, I don't know, Matthew Stafford's not like a superstar, but Barry Sanders was, and you can't win on your own. LeBron James, before he went to Miami and learned how to win, same thing. He didn't have anybody around him. I wouldn't say anybody, but he didn't have the right pieces around him. So anyway, the first 2 times the Pistons win the title, they beat the Bulls, and then finally, when the Pistons start to decline, they go for their three-peat, and the Bulls beat them. And you see in the documentary that the Pistons, the bad boys, didn't shake their hands, they just walked off the court. Now, in the documentary, they really make the Pistons out to being like everybody's surprised that the bad boys walked off the court. First of all, Zeke is right that the Celtics walked off during the game, and so if you're going to take the Pistons down for this lack of sportsmanship, and I agree that the Pistons should have shaken hands. I think that's the right thing to do, but the Celtics didn't do it either. So Isaiah was right, but the thing that besides that, the thing that kind of bugs me about it is that it's almost like people still look back at that Pistons team. Don't really give them credit, by the way. You got Isaiah Thomas, one of the best point guards of all time, besides Magic Johnson. You got Joe D. You got the microwave heating things up. You go down the line, one of the best teams of all time. And people act as if like they were pretending, like they were putting on a show. Like after the game, they were all of a sudden going to be like nice guys that you have a beer with and have a slice of Little Caesars pizza with. No, they were bad boys. They were real. They were authentic. And that's what they do. I bet you if teams shook hands 30 minutes after the game, like you went to the locker room, then you came back on the court for whatever reason, I bet you if they had some time to cool down, I think they probably would have shaken hands. But they were so competitive and so, I guess, kind of nasty in some ways. It's not a surprise that that's what happened. And so I can understand if you want to come out in the documentary and say, they should have shaken our hands. I think it was a shitty thing to do. I agree with you. It was a shitty thing to do. I think if I had to blame anybody, it was Bill Laimbeer, who whispered into Isaiah's ear, like, we're walking off the court. I think if he hadn't said that, I think all the Pistons would have shaken their hands. But Bill Laimbeer is a different cat, Bill Laimbeer is the kind of guy that everybody hated and still hates. But when he's on your side, you can understand why people hate him, but that's your guy. He's ready to go to battle for. He's ready to die for the city of Detroit, for the Pistons, for Michigan. You love guys like that who are so passionate about what they're doing that maybe he took it too far sometimes. Sure, yeah, they all did Mahorn. They all pushed things too far at times, but that was the way that they played. And to sit here and pretend like them walking off the court was a huge surprise it's just disingenuous. The reaction to it is disingenuous, I think, because keeping Isaiah off the dream team on the Olympic team because of that afterwards, because Michael Jordan couldn't handle being around somebody who challenged him or didn't show him some sort of respect, like he was the king, we're supposed to bow down to him. Well, I guess he is the king, but he also got his shit knocked around for a few years by the Pistons, and he probably didn't really like it. They were just looking for a reason to talk shit about the bad boys, I think. And again, I'm going to say that I think that they should have shaken hands. It's something that they should have done, but that's not the team that they were. They were tough, and they left the court, just like the Celtics did. So what are you going to do? It's kind of strange. In some ways, I feel like if we could get off the Jordan, like what the bad boys were, get off that documentary for a second, I do feel a little bit like not shaking hands with Jordan and the Bulls when they beat them. I do feel like that's one of those mistakes that a city or an organization, I mean, the city didn't have anything to do with it, but I just mean like the culture, because Pistons fans, we loved the bad boys, and so when people hated the bad boys, it sort of felt like they were saying that they hated us, which isn't necessarily a good feeling, but it gives you something to bond over. It makes you feel like it's you against the world, like the t-shirt that says Detroit versus everybody, which I think isn't actually in every city, which I don't like. If they had shaken hands, I feel like that's the right thing to do, not just because it's good sportsmanship, but also I feel like when you do classy things, when you're able to just swallow your pride, and Jordan and the Bulls shook their hands when they lost every time, I think it elevates you to another level of class. And I think that's one of the things that, I love the city of Detroit. I think that's one of the things in that era, the Bad Boys era, that would have made the national media respect them more. I had a guy, I used to work at the Broadway Regal Cinemas in Portland, Oregon. It's not there anymore, but if you knew it, it was a gem. And I worked with a guy, he was from Iowa or something. He was a nice guy. But I remember telling him, I was from Michigan, I was a huge Pistons fan, and we used to get into slight arguments about it because he apparently wrote his master's thesis on how the Pistons bad boys ruined basketball. Oh, it used to drive him crazy that I would just, argue with him about it. Like, they didn't ruin basketball. Like, that's the way the game was. The game is cleaner now. If anything, the Pistons improved basketball in the sense that it's less violent now. It's a cleaner game. But anyway, it just gives you some of the background of the things that were happening at the time. And I think those little tiny things make a huge difference over the course of. It's a basketball team. It's not the city of Detroit, but I feel like those tiny little things make a huge difference when you talk about moving into the good energy vibes in a way. So I can kind of see where they're coming from when they talk about things. I still don't think they should have been surprised by it, but then again, the 2004 Going to Work team with Chauncey and Rip and Tayshaun and all those guys were played clean, and they didn't give those guys any credit, so I think it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, to be honest. All right, well, I was going to talk about Palm Springs. I saw that with Andy Samberg, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. I'm not going to, but I do recommend it. I saw it. It's on Hulu. I started to watch it, and then I didn't. I stopped, and then I heard on the radio the Dan Patrick Show, which is like this sports commentator. He was on the radio, and he was saying how he started it and didn't like it, and I thought, yeah, I don't like it either. And then later I heard comedian Joe List and Mark Norman talking about how much they liked Palm Springs, and I thought, why am I taking film advice from Dan Patrick? Seems like a nice guy, but he's not. He doesn't know anything about film. So I went back, I watched it. Good little film. I thought it was enjoyable. It was sort of about a time loop. And you're just getting a bonus feature here, Palm Springs. I do recommend it. It's no Groundhog Day, of course. But I do like that girl better than I like Andie MacDowell. Nothing wrong with Andie MacDowell necessarily, but she's kind of, for me, I never really got into her that much. Like, I love the movie Green Card, and I love 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but I don't know. Maybe if I met her in person, I feel like she's one of those kind of humans who charmed everyone in Hollywood and around the sets, but then when they filmed it, it didn't really come through to audiences who weren't there. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, Palm Springs, I recommend that too. Last Dance, gotta see it. Palm Springs, gotta see it. 2 recommendations. Got a free one in there. All right, so that's everything this week. You can follow me or us at Culture Fridays on Twitter. You know, I don't even check Twitter. I'm not gonna say it. Don't even go there. You can if you want to. But at Pop Culture Fridays on Instagram, for sure on there. Send me a message, will you? I want to hear from you. I want to know what's going on. And if you can, please, subscriptions and likes make all the difference in the world. If you could like this and subscribe to it, or write a comment, just be like, you're a douche, you're an asshole, fuck you, you're ugly. Whatever you want to do, just any kind of comment helps. I mean, don't do negative ones for the sake of it, but just say, like, beautiful watch. I don't know, something. If you have a second, and I know that you do, because you're not working just like I am, not working. Well, I'm not working, but I mean, we don't have, it's a weird time, all right? So anyway, all right, this is whereyouare.com. You can go there. I'll see you next week. And, take it easy. Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. We're all going to get through this. Till next week.